I think we will get started. Thanks everybody for being so punctual. So welcome everyone. My name is Paul Bishop. I lead the Journeys to Active Citizenship project at North York Community House. So glad to have you with us here today. We'll be speaking about the Journeys to Active Citizenship project, which is our national civic engagement project, where we're working with the settlement sector to build civic engagement programming. I'm joined today by my two colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves. Maybe I'll pass it over to you, Tanya.
Hello, my name is Tanya Reese-Chapman, and I am a project coordinator for the Journeys to Active Citizenship project through OCASI, the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants. Go ahead, Farhana.
Thanks, Tanya. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Farhana, and I'm the curriculum developer lead of the Journeys to Active Citizenship project from North York Community House.
Okay, thanks so much again, everyone, for joining us. I think we'll begin with Tanya, who delivered the territorial acknowledgement. Go ahead, Tanya.
So we'd like to begin with the territorial acknowledgement. And we are joining this webinar from different parts of Canada. And we encourage us all to think about the history of the land on which we live and work. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and Métis. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish and One Spoon, One Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. OCASI and the North York Community House are based in Toronto, which sits on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And regardless of where we are located, many of us have come here as settlers, as immigrants, migrants, and/or refugees in this generation or generations past. Some of us have come to this land voluntarily, others have come here forcibly. And we want to take the political intention of land acknowledgement seriously. And to do so, we must speak about how many have been stolen from their land. We must acknowledge African people who have been forcibly transplanted to Turtle Island as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, which has had and continues to have lasting consequences. Today, we continue to see countless examples of forced migration, including forced economic migration, environmental migration, labor migration, and others. And this must complicate the ways in which we acknowledge the land that we occupy. Finally, I think that it is imperative to connect settler colonialism here in Canada to settler colonialism abroad. Most notably, a sincere land acknowledgement for me must denounce Israel's long-standing occupation of Palestine and Canada's complicity and investment into the genocide of Palestinians. Now we will move to today's presentation and speak about the Journeys to Active Citizenship project. The agenda for today is to understand what the Journeys to Active Citizenship project is, to understand how the community of practice is important to the Journeys to Active Citizenship, understand how Jack has created a community of practice, and share how we can build community in our own work. The Journeys to Active Citizenship project is a partnership between the North York Community House and OCASI. It's a 5-year project. We're finishing off the 5th year now, and it is funded by Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada. You'll learn more about the actual project and sort of ins and outs as we go through today's presentation. So we realize that the chat box does not work, but please, or that you're unable to access the chat box, but please put in the question and answer box if you'd like to. You can add your name, where you're located, which groups, populations you serve, and what services you provide that encourage civic engagement. Another option, as we go throughout today's presentations, we'll have discussion questions, and if you raise your hand, we can give you the ability to unmute yourself if you'd like to participate verbally. And someone from our team will be monitoring the question and answer section throughout the presentation, so feel free to add any commentary there.
I was thinking, Farhana, if you want to begin the project introduction, maybe people can be introducing themselves in the Q&A section as you're doing that.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
So to introduce the Journeys to Active Citizenship project, I thought it would be good for us to take a moment to break down its name. Next slide, please. Starting with Journeys. Why Journeys instead of just Journey, a single one? It's because as a project, we recognize that for immigrants and refugees, the path of becoming an active citizen is never one size fits all. We acknowledge that each person's journey is shaped by their unique experiences, challenges, and contributions, and every journey matters. We value the different pathways that people take to become active members of their communities. Next one, please. Now let's talk about active citizenship. For us, it's not just about knowing and exercising your rights and responsibilities, but most importantly, it's about finding ways to actively shape the inclusive community you want to belong to. And that might mean participating in political activities such as voting, or engaging in non-political activities such as volunteering for causes you care about, or even having meaningful conversations that foster understanding and build connections between people from different backgrounds. Next slide, please. Ultimately, the goal of the Journeys to Active Citizenship project, or as we call JAC, is about recognizing and supporting these diverse journeys while empowering every individual to contribute in their own way to foster a more inclusive Canada. So how have we as a team been trying to achieve this? First, over the past 4 years, the JAC project is focused on 3 ways to empower immigrants, refugees, and the settlement sector to support active citizenship. First, we've been enhancing the ability of settlement organizations to deliver Sorry, I just get distracted by the chat. First, we've been enhancing the ability of settlement organizations to deliver our active citizenship program. And to date, we have partnered up with over 14 settlement agencies across Ontario and trained more than 60 facilitators to be confident in implementing the activities and programs that we offer. Next slide, please. Next, we've been creating opportunities for immigrants and refugees to apply their skills by participating in various programs and workshops through our project. And finally, we've been building the skills, knowledge, confidence, and connections immigrants and refugees need to take an active roles in civic life. And through our program and the amazing support from our pilot agencies, over 1,400 participants have gained hands-on experience, put their civic skills into action, and been encouraged to build their own communities of practice. Next slide. So to illustrate our commitment to empowering immigrants and refugees, we'd like to share with you a brief video co-created with one of our pilot agencies which is the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association. This video that will show you highlights a youth-focused active citizenship program, which we named Our Community Through Our Lens, which is just one of the many activities and program models that we offer settlement sector to use. So this video, it provides a glimpse into how our programming not only equips participants with the skills and confidence to actively engage their communities, but also encourages the formation and strengthening of communities of practice. So I'll pass it on to Dave, if you could please play the video. Thank you.
Our Community Through Our Lens program is a program in partnership between us, the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association, and the Journeys to Active Citizenship. And it's a program for the youth specifically. So what they're going to be doing is they are going to go out in the community and capture photos that they're going to be doing themselves, and then telling a story about like what they feel through these pictures. And then there's different topics that they're going to be presenting on.
My name is Caleb Kagajo. I'm from Burundi. I came to Canada in February of 2023. We had a very good experience with my team. We went outside, we had a good time taking pictures. I made some friends in the program that we talked about meeting again.
So some of the benefits of the programs are the youth are able to come together and form new friendships. They're able to also interact with each other, so practice their conversation skills. They're able to develop some leadership skills as well. And then also going into the community and learning different services that is available to them as well.
It's a very good program because it can help you with your social life. It increases your confidence in people. Something I learned today was being open with new people and knowing how to communicate with them. I think newcomers in Canada should get involved in the program because it's a way to engage in society.
I would recommend any interested communities to participate in programs such as the Journeys to Active Citizenship in order to engage newcomer youth.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to pass it over to Tanya to share more about how our project defines community of practice.
Great, thank you, Farhana. So what is a community of practice? We can go to the next slide. So a community of practice is a theory of learning, a way to understand how we learn, how we make changes in our processes and our practices. And it was developed by John Lavey and Etienne Wenger, and they coined the term and thinking about practice within communities as a living curriculum and something that's always changing. And so on the slide, we see a quote that says, communities of practice are groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. So he identifies sort of three pillars of the community of practice: the domain, community, and practice. These are sort of the pillars of what it means. So if we begin with domain, it's defined as community members who share a domain of interest, of competency, and commitment that distinguishes them from others. So an area, we can think of it as sort of area of interest. It's not just a network or of connections, but it's defined by a certain narrow understanding of a particular domain. And it implies a commitment to that domain, with the understanding that there's shared competency, expertise, and this distinguishes members from within that domain from other people outside of the community. And the community are the members themselves who pursue these interests through joint activities, discussions, problem-solving opportunities, information sharing, and relationship building. So members engage in joint activities. They help each other and again, share information. Relationships are built within the community, again, based on this shared domain of interest, this shared area of expertise. And this enables everyone to learn from each other, to stand with each other. There's a constant interaction between community members and a learning process that's happening together. Finally, that piece of practice, right? So practice is the actual, the idea or the reality that community members are actual practitioners in this domain of interest or in this area of expertise, and that there's a built and shared repertoire of resources and ideas that they take back to their practice. So really emphasizing the reality that the community members themselves are practitioners, and there's a development of shared repertoire, which include experiences as stories, as tools, and wanting to improve the processes by which they do their work. And again, it takes a sort of sustained approach to sort of sustaining the interactions between community members. Next slide, please. So why have a community of practice? Well, first, it's a form of education. It allows us to learn with and from each other by collecting and sharing information related to common questions and issues of practice. It provides opportunities for peer-to-peer connections. It brings people together who may not have even identified themselves as belonging to the same community or being engaged in the same domain of interest, the same area of expertise. And it allows for integration of new members into an already or a developing community of practice. Through support and encouragement, we can bring forward and promote the organizing of interactions and collaborations amongst members, again, providing ideas for further development, thinking about where opportunities lie for that development and where sort of learning tools can be developed and disseminated throughout the community. It cultivates by assisting groups to start and sustain their learning, identifying unique assets that people have, particularly within the settlement sector, to think about amplifying the voices of marginalized groups and or groups who have been made vulnerable. Finally, there's an emphasis on collective responsibility. Community of practice does not understand knowledge as existing as a hierarchy, and there must be a commitment to ongoing learning and knowledge sharing amongst its members. And it validates people's experiences as forms of expertise. There's a commitment to working together through shared challenges. And so overall, we see these sort of three pillars coming through when we think about the importance of community of practice. And Paul's going to speak to how the Journeys to Active Citizenship project engages in that very practice.
Okay, thank you so much, Tanya and Farhana. So I think both Tanya and Farhana did great jobs of presenting the Journeys to Active Citizenship project and what a community of practice is. My job today is to kind of bridge the two, to speak a little bit about how we understand a community of practice in the context of the Journeys to Active Citizenship project and how it is that we actually built it for our project. I think really a lot of this happened throughout the project as we were building the curriculum that we now offer, right? So over the last 4 years, we've built this curriculum that practitioners can use that fosters civic engagement with clients. And the whole process of building that also at the same time, kind of in tandem, involved building that community of practice. So I'll walk you through a little bit of what went in to the design process of our curriculum and how that at the same time built our COP. Okay, so I think really the most central part of this came in the summer of 2022. This is when we did what we called our design jams. So really central to the project from the outset was this idea of co-design, right? We wanted to be building a curriculum with the settlement sector, not just for the settlement sector, right? We want to make sure they were always a part of this process. So that's why we organized what we called design jams in cities across Ontario in 2022. So we went to St. Catharines, we went to Thunder Bay. You can see a photo of us, some of the folks that we did the design jam with in Thunder Bay that summer. We did it in Ottawa and Toronto, of course, in Hamilton and Windsor and in London. The goal here was really to identify some of the obstacles and some of the assets that existed in these communities, and you know what a program like ours could do to help them leverage those assets on the one hand, and also overcome some of the obstacles that they had. The design jams were in French and English. We wanted to ensure that we were addressing some of the unique barriers that Francophone settlement services have, right? It was here that we really identified what it is we wanted to achieve with this curriculum, right? We wanted to get a sense of who is the community that we want to serve, what barriers do they have, what enablers do they have to civic engagement, and how can we build something that's going to help them meet those challenges. But at the same time, right, this was an opportunity for that community of practice to start to grow. It was an opportunity for people to meet each other, right? Frontline settlement sector workers were joining these design jams with middle managers, with sector leadership, and with clients and service users, right? They were taking part in these group sessions, right? That brought together lots of different settlement agencies from those different regions. People together were, you know, identifying the assets that they had in common. What barriers were they all experiencing together, and thinking about how they could mobilize some of those assets together to make change in their communities. I think what I was really encouraged seeing was coming out of these stakeholders really thought about ways that they could be contributing, you know, in ways that they'd not necessarily considered before, right? Because the opportunity to make connections through these design jams. You know, a lot of folks, because we had just been coming out of the worst of COVID, hadn't had a chance to do this in a while. This was an opportunity for them to be making connections, thinking about, okay, what assets do we have? What obstacles are we facing? And how can we confront them together? And we were really happy to see that a lot of folks that participated in the design jams went on to pilot the program in later years. So that brings us to the piloting. Once, you know, we went through the process of doing these design jams, hearing what the community wanted from us, it was time to actually pilot what we created, right? So obviously the goal here was to put some of the content that we created, you know, essentially to the test. But there was a real opportunity for the folks involved as well. So we did piloting with 13 agencies in 8 different cities with 62 practitioners. Over 1,000 participants joined, and we, you know, continued to build the curriculum based off of their input. Obviously, there was the initial curriculum that we built after the design jams, and the piloting, you know, sort of furthered that process. And this is really where the community of practice began to come into its own and become a bit more self-sustaining. So we saw a really great stakeholder engagement where people were, you know, it was a chance for facilitators and participants to come together, partner organizations to test the curriculum, which we saw build strength, build connection, and build network, right, among those different practitioners that were piloting it. It was a chance for people to provide insight on what worked, the challenges they encountered, the potential improvements. And this was an opportunity for idea exchange, collective problem solving, and, you know, building that sense of community. We saw people sharing new insights that maybe they'd never considered before, learning the strengths that they didn't know they had, becoming leaders in ways that they were not necessarily expecting. You know, and lastly, as we saw people implement this curriculum, they were really developing the skills and competence to deliver these engagement activities, which they were able to share with others in their community, right? And in that community of practice. I think we saw a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of excitement that was built, a lot of investment in the curriculum, and we saw its impact on people firsthand. And that we feel really developed a sense of ownership ongoing collaboration, which we really seem to continue to play out. A real desire to boost the program, to promote it to others, and in so doing, right, creating a community. Okay, the other piece of that, so there's the curriculum, but we also convene regularly. We convene our roundtables. These are yearly, so this is sort of separate from the curriculum that we've built. We like to convene sector leaders, to talk just about civic engagement in the sector. What does it look like? What challenges are you facing? We've had folks, join these roundtables from the more grassroots side. The Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion delivered a presentation at our most recent one, from the City of All Women Initiative in Ottawa, the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians. In 2022, we had Elamin Abdel Mahmoud, who you might know from the CDC, speaking on his journey as an immigrant from Sudan and what his pathway to civic engagement looked like. It's a real chance, these roundtables, for people, again, to consider the assets they have, how they can contribute them to civic engagement, and maybe what opportunities there might be for them to create and sustain community. Now, with the roundtables, we see a lot of the same advantages here as we did in the design jams, right? In terms of people being able to meet one another, to network. But beyond that, it's a real, they're great because they're virtual, right? So it means we're able to bring in people from all different parts of Canada and really get a sense of what civic engagement looks like from a Canada-wide lens. And that's another reason we're so happy to be here today, because it's a chance to speak to a national audience. We learned as well about what it looks like for Francophone audiences, much as we are a bilingual project, right? It can sometimes be, more difficult to connect with some of the Francophone agencies. So it's great to have their voice at these roundtables. They're connecting also with Anglophone agencies, so building community across those lines as well. Urban versus rural, Eastern Canada versus Western Canada, people building communities in ways they hadn't really expected to before. I do want to say that, every year we do one of these roundtables. This year, we're going to be doing something a little more enhanced. We're actually going to be hosting a day-long conference, and Tanya has been really hard at work organizing that conference. So we would love you to join us. So that's on February 13th. It will be virtual, so you're able to join from wherever you are, and you can join from our website, which is journeys-to-active-citizenship.ca. We'll have a stay connected slide at the end if you want to jot down that URL. You can do that at the end. But I think it'll be a chance to meet other folks and learn about civic engagement in the sector. So we hope to see you there. So those are the roundtables. And then lastly, I wanted to speak a little bit about our discussion hub, how we've created community through that. The discussion hub came out of the piloting that we did. We heard from a lot of practitioners that they felt a little bit isolated, I think, by their experience, right? Much as they had a lot of positive experiences, there was sometimes a feeling of isolation, because this stuff, the curriculum content, the civic engagement content that they were piloting was new to them. And they wanted to have a place to learn about, okay, I'm piloting civic engagement stuff for the first time. Who else has done this before, right? How could I be supported in doing this? So the discussion hub, which we've created, has been a great place to share best practices first and foremost, right? So people can share what works and what doesn't in doing civic engagement with clients, but also announcements and resource sharing. So that's also available if you go to our website, journeys-to-active-citizenship.ca. You can join our discussion hub and join in the conversation. Okay. So that's how we define the community of practice, and that's kind of how we built it. But what have we learned from our community of practice, right? It's one thing to build it, but it's quite another thing to actually really learn and put those learnings into practice. So what did we learn from our community of practice over these 4 years that we've built it? There's so many different things, right? And we only have an hour today, so there's only so much I can say. But I think I wanted to draw out some of the key things that we've learned from our community. I think the first and foremost thing is that there is a lot of appetite in the settlement sector to do civic engagement work, right? Capacity is not always there, right? That's a challenge that we've come up against, throughout the project. Civic engagement for some people, for some practitioners, for some clients, it's so far down the bottom of the list in terms of priorities, right? That's the feeling. The feeling is that the capacity isn't there. The reality, though, is that a lot of people are already doing civic engagement, whether, doing it themselves or fostering it among their clients, but they're just not always aware that that's what they're doing, right? We found this particularly with folks doing, say, community connections programs, mentorship programs, community cooking, right? Those people are all very much doing civic engagement. It's just not always defined that way, right? So first of all, just getting people to realize that civic engagement work was already happening is kind of half the battle. But that's one thing. But for some, maybe really all they're able to focus on is English classes, employment, housing supports, really your baseline needs. So what's needed for them is a program that actually integrates into the work that we're doing. So what we've done with our curriculum is create something that, to the greatest extent possible, fits in and meets the objective of the program that they're running, but also ours, right? So kind of finding the overlap between programs there. So we've seen this work really well in ESL classes, certain employment workshops, and very much in youth programming as well. And I think you saw that earlier with our video from the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association, where we created a youth program where youth learn about their communities and build a sense of community ownership through creating a photo essay. Okay, the next learning. Clients, we found that, they came often with a raft of experiences from their home countries, but the barrier they found was translating that into that work here, right? So lots of experience with civic engagement from their home countries, but sometimes feeling the challenge of doing that work here. People were both overwhelmed with adapting to life here, right? The feeling was that civic engagement was, in the best case, was time consuming, or in the worst case, it was actually dangerous, right? Some people were coming from countries where civic engagement is dangerous, and it can take a while to kind of shake that feeling off, right? I think many folks also lacked community networks here, and that makes civic engagement virtually impossible, right? Because civic engagement never happens in isolation. So what we created from learning this was something that builds up confidence, right? Giving people the skills to speak publicly, to challenge ideas that they disagree with, and to demonstrate that this can all be done in a safe way. Also creating community. We saw actual communities formed as people worked together to solve problems, right? So we found that people were interested and willing, but needed to build up skills and confidence. And a lot of what we've done in creating this curriculum and piloting it has addressed that very need. Okay. And then lastly, this work needs to continue, right? That's one thing we learned from people, right? That a self-sustaining network is really, really necessary for this to continue. As I said when I was speaking about the discussion hub, people, practitioners, don't always feel confident doing this work on their own. Some do, right? But many don't. For a lot of people, this is really, really new. This is new stuff, and they need continued support. Now, our team, right, myself and Farhana and Tanya and other members of the team, we've been able to offer this through trainings, through consistent support, right? That's not necessarily going to always be there, right? Of course, we don't know what the future of the project will look like in terms of funding. So that program support that we offer may well not be there beyond the end of the project. So sharing resources and sharing ideas, that's what needs to go on in order for this work to continue. It's what we've built up over the last few years, but there's still tons of more work to be done here. And that's why it's so important that we're here today. It's really in these kinds of meetings that people involved, right, can sort of take the baton and continue this work of creating community, right? Now, this kind of leads us into the discussion portion, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some kind of interactive discussion here going, hoping that that'll work. We really want to understand, from a national perspective, how we're creating a community of practice. And we want to just understand how this sort of works in your communities, right? So, we've done a fair bit of this. We've come to the Metropolis conference a few times, but I do think that there is more opportunity to learn, how you all create communities of practice in your communities across Canada. So for this, we'd love to hear from you. And we have a fairly simple discussion question that I love to use just to get the ball rolling. So in the communities that you're coming from, I know we're coming from all across Canada here. what gets you to join a community of practice and what gets you to stay in it? I'd love if you could share an example of a community of practice you're in, whether or not it relates to civic engagement. What do you find gets you to join communities of practice? What do you find what do you find successful in the communities of practice that you've been part of? And what gets you to stay in it? I just love to hear some examples of people's work in communities of practice. Now, I think our tech support person who's here was saying that people could just raise their hands if they wanted to speak, and that we'd be able to unmute them. I think that's what I understood. I see someone's responding in the chat. Okay, that is correct. Thank you, Dave. So yeah, if you're able to raise your hand, we will be able to unmute you. So we'd love to hear just any experiences that you have from being part of a community of practice in your communities. What do you find gets you to join one? What gets you to stay in it? We just love to hear some success stories about communities of practice that you've been a part of. If anyone's able just to share an experience, let's say if you've been on any kind of working group or any kind of steering committee for any sort of project, what have you found really makes that work successful, right? We just love to hear experiences of people from different parts of Canada about like what, if any community of practice you've been part of, right? Whether it's a working group or a steering committee, what worked there, right? We'd love to just hear some kind of success stories because we'd love to hear about how communities of practice get built around Canada.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, my name is Huda. I'm joining you from Vancouver, BC.
Hi.
I'm a settlement worker
Yeah.
from ISS of BC, Immigrant Service Society of BC. I'm part of this organization. Is built by the community organization for the newcomers.
Mm-hmm.
And as my journey has started with the ISS of BC, myself, like 19 years ago, I was a newcomer. And the same organization supported me to build my life in Canada. And that more motivated me as I started as a volunteer. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to give it back because many newcomers going through same journey I went. And I wanted to give them, to give back what I received. And that makes me happy when I'm directing or guiding people to have a fresh and a new start here and providing them the information. And many of us, my colleagues, have similarity experience, and yeah, that's we are. And that makes actually more strong our organizations and many among us to work, so to support, to build a new Canadians to be part of it.
Yeah. That's great. So it sounds like a lot of the community that you created was meeting other newcomers, both as a volunteer and then working at that organization once you moved on from volunteer. Is that right?
Right. Yes.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. And if I can just continue to pick on you a bit here, Huda, in your work as a settlement worker at ISS of BC, have you been part of any communities of practice as we would define them, sort of like working groups or steering committees or anything like that? Was there anyone that you've joined that you found like it just really grabbed you and it really just sort of excited you in the work that you were doing?
Yes, I've been worked so many groups, and recently was last year a group project for a woman's. Was a fresh project about based on image.
Yeah.
And that's the image was pictures, and built from that pictures created an history about the people's background. It was something new and exciting, and everybody can join, and it was fun part. And that was kind of not only people telling their story, also that also have some kind of reconciliation, because people, when they are learning from each other back, and get them to understand from one another where they coming from. And it's all based was like a view was taken, like
Yeah.
based on images.
Yeah. So it sounds like storytelling was a real appeal for you,
Yes.
right? Yeah. We found that as well. An opportunity to tell your story and to hear other people's stories is a really crucial part of building a successful COP. Yeah, that's great. Love to hear that. Thank you so much, Huda. I think Emily has their hand raised as well.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hi. So I think what gets me to join a community of practice is if I'm not 100% confident in my ability to, do that work or speak to that topic, and it relates to my role. So, for example, I sit on quite a few different community of practices for anti-racism work. As a white person and a settler, it's really, really important that I, learn more and, get the perspectives of other folks who are doing this work.
Yeah.
And what gets me to stay in community practices are just like a very supportive conversation, and resource sharing, I think, is really important. I know you mentioned that because I think the more we can learn from each other is very helpful. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, that's great. A chance to share resources, a chance to learn more, right, about what other work is being done. Absolutely, yeah. And just so as I think you noted, like, so important to get a diversity of perspectives on any community of practice. Absolutely. So if you do have questions for us, we would love to take them now. So you can either try to raise your hand and we might be able to unmute you. I know we're having some trouble with that, but otherwise you can go ahead and type your questions into the chat and we would be happy to take them. If you have any questions about our project generally, about how we've created a community of practice, or our understanding of the community of practice, anything you'd like to do with what we've spoken about today, go ahead.
I think Paul, Farhana, and I can reiterate or speak to the importance of these, as some of those who've already spoken noted, the importance of highlighting lived experiences in fostering community of practice and also in the curriculum development, right? So the curriculum tools are not prescriptive, it's their guides, right? And so they can be used to speak to the particularities of your audience, of the communities that you serve, right? And that expertise really comes from you and service providers and the people that you serve, right? That's going to guide how you make use of the tools and also how you develop your own initiatives and, again, engage in and create and reproduce communities of practice. I see we have a question. No, we do not. Sorry. I thought we did.
I think
Yeah, no,
we do.
Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat. So thank you all for doing this, for sharing your questions. So the first question, can you talk a little bit more about what the curriculum includes and how it was developed? I'm happy to add here, but maybe I'll toss this one to Farhana as our lead curriculum developer.
Sure, yeah. I think in terms of, so what the curriculum includes, when we say the curriculum, we're referring to the activities that we have developed that can be delivered in one single workshop. And we also have programs which are composed of 5 sessions. And those activities aim to build the civic skills that we have identified as important, as well as provide opportunities for the participants to build our confidence. I think it might be easier to share our website where you can where it actually shows our curriculum to also answer the second question. So I think I'll just share my screen.
I've just put in the chat there as well the link to the website where you can see the activities and you actually download all the resources for facilitators that you can use.
Sorry,
yeah. Oh, do you want me to stop sharing so you can share your screen?
If you're on the website now, if you can share it, because I was
sure, I can do that, absolutely.
While Paul is doing that, in terms of how it was developed, there were a lot of people that were involved in terms of creating the curriculum that we offer now, but basically it started with the design gems, identifying what topics might be of interest for the newcomers and what they would like to know. And from that, we built design principles that to ensure that the activities is inclusive. And that could mean, making sure that participants are able to share their experiences and the activities that we're creating, and it's more interactive and building on what they already have. And as a continuation of that, we made sure that the curriculum goes through an iterative cycle. So after piloting, we received feedback from the participants as well as the facilitators and revised the activities as to which the current curriculum in our website include now. I do hope that answers the question. But yes, all the activities that we have, if you can just scroll down, Paul, and maybe show them how to access it, because I think one participant also asked, Najmuddin, sorry, asked how can they get the handouts and.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to do a little demo of our website here. So I've put the URL for this page in the chat. This is where you access all of our curriculum resources. So maybe I'll just click on one as an example, belonging in our communities. So this is one which gets people thinking about what parts of their community they care about, how they like to get involved in their community, where they like to feel, where they sort of feel at home in their communities, right? So this has the intended audience, what the objectives are, how long it would take to run it, and an activity guide. Now, I can click that. I'm not sure if that I'll be able to share my screen for that, but yeah, maybe I'll just open and show you what the activity guide looks like in practice. I'll have to just move away from sharing the web page and share the activity guide. Okay. So you can see what the activity guide would look like. Oh, it closed. So what happened?
And in terms of what the curriculum, we call it packages, where you have the activity guide. We also have created the slide decks, all the handouts that you will need, some multimedia content if needed. But given that, you can also edit it or revise it depending on the needs and interests of your participants.
So yeah, so this is where you can see the activity guide. So this is a guide for facilitators to lead the activity, right? So this comes with all the learning objectives and then a step-by-step guide for how you would go about leading this with your clients. There's also a set of associated resources that comes with this. So there'd be participant workbooks. In many cases, there are slide decks as well that you can use as visuals, right? So it's all there, as Farhana rightly said, right? These are curriculum packages. We learned, right, how important it is to have something sort of pre-prepared that people can just drop in, right? Because capacity is such an issue for the settlement sector. We wanted to create something that's like simple and easy to use, right? So I'll go back to what the website looks like. Yeah, so I mean, this is true for all the activities that you're going to have. Your activity guide, you'll have a set of associated resources, you'll have slides. And many of the resources that we have are also available in Farsi and in Arabic. Language barrier obviously was something we heard from our community of practice as well. That was hindering civic engagement for folks. So a lot of this is available in Farsi and in Arabic, and it's fully bilingual, available in French as well. Yeah. So yeah, there's 14 of these sort of shorter individual curriculum activities, and then 2 standalone program models. So what you saw with the video we did in Thunder Bay was our Community Through Our Lens program model, right? Where we actually created a sort of multi-day course that the youth went through. There's sort of beginning, middle, and an end, same cohort every time. So those ones are a little bit more extended. The ones you're seeing right here, these are these kind of shorter individual activities. Okay, some other questions here. So Emily is asking, thank you for the presentation. How did you address the challenge of folks viewing civic engagement as dangerous? It's a really, really good question. And it's a challenge. I mean, I don't think, any one program is able to, completely solve that problem, right? Because that's a really, really big issue that is very challenging to solve. So I think one thing that we offered is we have a few activities that get people really sort of taking action and taking steps to like write a letter, for example, to their elected representative. That's a really good one where people can practice, going about and writing a letter to their MP or their city councilor or whatever about an issue they care about. And a lot of times people write those letters and they get a response back, right? And I think that in however small a way gives people a chance to see that, oh, okay, I can, take up an issue with my city councilor and they're going to write me back and they're not going to be angry about it, right? They're going to be respectful. It's just a little bit of a way to show that this is something I can do safely, and then I'll get a response back, and that won't sort of create any risk for me, right? It's not to say that's going to completely solve people's fear and wariness around civic engagement, but I think it's a small step in the right direction.
I would add to that as well, and you can find some of the discussion or discussion in webinars that we've held, particularly one that was with Maiwa and Rahab, who created an organization for human rights defenders who had come to Canada because of their political activism in their home countries, and part of their migration stories were because of the danger that activism or civic engagement, however you want to frame it, produced or involved, right? So, and then he spoke about creating conditions or communities wherein you can still do action for human rights defense, both in Canada and from countries where you may have migrated or been forced to or been displaced out of, right? And so, though it's not a particular curriculum activity, there's space for us to start thinking beyond just the curriculum of how do we understand civic engagement, and which communities that we serve, how are they understanding it and engaging in it? Because I mean, to be like, if we really want to open the discussion, it can be risky, particularly for some kinds of immigrants, migrants, and refugees, specifically those with precarious status. Civic engagement can be risky, right? Especially, and civic engagement, depending on how you understand it, political activism can be criminalized, right? And so part of our work as settlement agencies or service providers is also, I think, within a community of practice, to acknowledge that and bring that into the discussion, and have that space to say, like, yes, there is risk. Here are ways that you can mitigate that risk. Here are ways, for example, through deputations, through these channels of local municipal politics, etc., that are less risky, without erasing the fact that there are also risks depending on your status, even, right? It's not just like explicit answer to Emily's question, but I think it's certainly important to throw into the discussion.
For sure. And I really welcome that addition, Tanya. That's totally right. I think we do, I think, what we can to sort of address people's wariness around it, but there are very reasonable and very real fears that, and very valid fears that people have around civic engagement, that we really try not to shy away from, right? Yeah, so I see a question. This is a great one from Kevin. Do you address the issue of community resistance to newcomer engagement? I'm going to assume, Kevin, that you mean like community resistance among the sort of like Canadian-born population. There is also community resistance within newcomer communities, right, towards civic engagement. I'm not sure which of the two you're speaking about, or both. But I can speak to like sort of resistance from Canadian citizens. I mean, I wouldn't say we have any particular toolkit, right, that addresses that directly. But I would say that our curriculum does encourage a lot of sort of cross-community collaboration. So to put that a little bit more simply, let me think of an example here. For example, in our youth active citizenship program, right, where people are building these photo essays, one of the things we do at the end is create a toolkit for people to for the organization to invite members of their community in to come and see their work, right? So it is a chance for other members of the community to come in and see the work that's been done, and to build a little bit of some links here, right, to sort of to undermine some of that misunderstanding that might cause that resistance to newcomer engagement. So we do try to build in opportunities to have people from the community meet these newcomer groups, right, and to sort of undermine some of that maybe fear or misunderstanding. Yeah, Kevin, I'm not sure if that answers your question. I mean, I think it is a really challenging one, right? And again, it's not something that our project is necessarily going to completely be able to solve, right? But we try to build in opportunities for folks to meet members of the community and for community members to meet them, right? So hoping that it can undermine some of that misunderstanding and resistance that you're noting there. Okay. Just reading some of these here. Thanks for making this available in French.
Just want to highlight Daniela's point, because
sure,
go over what they're saying. Basically that they wanted to share that ICA Victoria, that they're part of the Indigenous Journeys group, which is committed to actively participate in the process of reconciliation. They create learning opportunities for staff and clients, collaborate with Indigenous communities, and find ways to foster relationships between Indigenous communities and newcomers. I think that was to speak to the point of examples of people participating in communities of practice. Sorry, I just didn't want that to get...
No, the reason I skipped over is because I know Daniela was speaking earlier, and for some reason I thought that was her point from earlier, but she put in a new one while I was speaking. So thank you, Daniela. And someone here is asking, are any Francophone organizations using the tool? Yeah, we have piloted with Centre de Santé Communautaire in Windsor. Yeah, it was Windsor, Essex, Kent. Yeah. So they piloted in the third year of our project. I will be honest, I think, yeah, the uptake with Francophone communities, it can be more challenging. I mean, we are a bilingual project, but it can be sometimes more challenging to engage Francophone communities. I think we're just less of a known quantity. We're doing our best, right, to increase that engagement, right, by having Francophone speakers at our roundtable, right, and obviously inviting lots of Francophone organizations to some of these events. But it does remain a challenge. We have had Francophone engagement, but we're always working to have more. Yeah. You're saying Mothers Matter Canada is a national org reaching service providers from coast to coast to coast who deliver our programs in French and English to immigrant and newcomer families with preschool-age children. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Okay, so maybe we could connect offline. We'll put up some contact info at the end, and feel free to reach out to us if you want to continue. You're also welcome to share your email directly with us. Okay, and I see another one here from Samsam. Does the curriculum provide a safe space for invisible minorities experiencing mental health? Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a good one. I wouldn't say that our curriculum directly addresses the issue of mental health, right? The focus is definitely on civic engagement, but I think sort of one of the outcomes that we see from the project have really good net positive effects on people's mental health, I think, right? I think we're seeing people build up their confidence, people build up community, people having chances to demonstrate leadership, right? So these are all sort of, I think, necessary foundations for solid mental health, right? Isolation is one thing we heard about a lot in our design jams, right? And we wanted to create something that helps people undermine some of that isolation, right? To give them opportunities through these activities to connect with other members of the network, which, you know, we haven't measured this because this is not really the focus of the project, but I can only imagine is having positive effects on people's mental health. Yeah. Okay. And then I see someone asking if we'll share a video of this meeting with us. Yeah, if I understand correctly from Dave, who's the tech person here, this meeting is recorded, and I'm guessing it will be shared on Feedloop after we're done here. Okay, yeah, so we'd love to continue to stay connected with you. You can follow us on Twitter at Journeys to AC. Also, please go ahead and check out our website. That's where you'll have access to all of our curriculum tools. You can download them for free in English, French, and many of them are also available in Arabic and Farsi. You can download them and use them with your clients. We also have a SettleNet community. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with SettleNet. It's an online community of practice for the settlement sector. There's also our discussion hub where you can contribute to the conversation with others. And you're also welcome to email me directly. You can see my email right up there on the screen. We would love to continue to stay in contact with you, to continue to build this community that we're creating. So would be great to continue the conversation. I'm not sure if Najmuddin has had a chance to ask their question. Oh, no question. Okay, no problem. Okay, all right. So, well, I think we will close it there, and a heartfelt thank you from all of us for joining. It's really, really wonderful to have you be part of this, and we really hope to hear from you soon.